Ladies and gentlemen, imagine living every day questioning yourself, bending, shrinking, and sacrificing your peace for someone who never truly sees you. Imagine giving love, energy, and trust only to realize it was never enough. And then one day, everything changes. What if I told you that the moment they finally realize what they've lost, you're not sad, not broken, not waiting? You're free. Not just free from them, but free to reclaim yourself, your voice, your life. Tonight, we're going to explore that journey from pain to clarity, from control to power, from survival to unstoppable freedom. Stay with me. The moment of clarity doesn't arrive the way pain does. Pain is loud, relentless, demanding your attention every second. Clarity is quieter. It slips in when the emotional noise finally dies down and you're no longer reacting, defending, or explaining yourself. It's the instant you stop asking, "What did I do wrong?" and start asking, "Why did I accept this?" That shift alone changes everything. At first, it can feel unsettling because clarity doesn't come with instant relief. It comes with honesty. You begin to see patterns you once made excuses for, words that didn't match actions, apologies that changed nothing, promises that were always just out of reach. And the hardest realization of all, you weren't confused, you were being conditioned to doubt yourself. What once felt like love now feels like emotional labor with no rest. This clarity often shows up after exhaustion, when your nervous system is tired of being on high alert, when your heart is tired of hoping someone will finally show up in a way they never have. You don't feel angry anymore, you feel awake. And that awakening is powerful because it's no longer fueled by emotion alone, but by understanding. You realize that love should not require self-abandonment. That connection should not cost you your voice. That respect should not be something you have to earn through silence or sacrifice. In this moment, the fog lifts, not all at once, but enough for you to see the road ahead. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. You may still care. You may still feel attached, but you no longer feel trapped. Clarity doesn't push you to leave immediately. It gives you the strength to stop lying to yourself. And that honesty becomes the first true step toward freedom because awareness is the beginning of reclaiming your life. And once that clarity settles in, something else begins to happen, something you don't even announce. You don't threaten to leave. You don't demand change. You simply stop reaching for what keeps hurting you. And that's when they realize it. Not right away. Never right away. Because the narcissist doesn't recognize loss in real time. They recognize it in the echo, in the silence where your voice used to be, in the space where your emotional labor once lived. They realize they messed up only after the dynamic shifts, after you're no longer available to absorb the blame, soothe the tension, or carry the weight of the relationship alone. What's painful and strangely validating is understanding that the realization isn't rooted in empathy. It's rooted in absence. They don't suddenly see your worth. They feel the discomfort of losing access to it. And by the time that awareness hits them, something in you has already changed. You're no longer bargaining with reality. You're no longer waiting for them to become who they pretended to be. The clarity you gained earlier acts like an emotional boundary they can't cross anymore. You don't argue your truth, you live it. And that quiet confidence is what makes their regret arrive too late. They may reach out, test the door, say the right words now that you no longer need them. But timing matters. Growth delayed until consequences and growth, it's panic. And here's the hard-earned lesson. You didn't lose your chance at love. They lost their chance at you because when you were willing to stay, they took you for granted. When you finally chose yourself, they noticed your value, but by then you had already reclaimed it. Their realization is loud inside them. Your freedom is quiet inside you, and that difference is everything. And in that space, where their regret grows louder and your life grows quieter, you begin to understand something that once scared you. Your silence is not weakness. It never was. For a long time, you were taught that strength meant explaining yourself, proving your intentions, fighting to be understood by someone who kept moving the goalposts. Silence felt like surrender back then, like losing your voice. But now, silence comes from a different place. It comes from self-respect. You're no longer silent because you have nothing to say. You're silent because you finally understand that some people don't listen to learn. They listen to control. And when you stop feeding that cycle, when you stop offering your truth to someone who weaponizes it, you're not giving up. You're protecting yourself. This kind of silence is powerful because it's intentional. It's the pause that says, "I know who I am now, and I don't need to convince you." It's the calm that replaces chaos, the boundary that doesn't require an explanation. And that's what unsettles them. They were used to your reactions, your emotional availability, your willingness to engage, even when it cost you peace. Your silence removes the leverage. There's nothing to twist, nothing to provoke, nothing to pull you back into the storm. They call it cold. They call it distance. But what it really is healing. Because healing doesn't always look like talking. Sometimes it looks like walking away without a speech. Sometimes it looks like unanswered messages and energy conserved. Sometimes it looks like choosing rest over resolution. And here's the truth most people learn too late. Not every battle deserves your voice. Not every misunderstanding deserves clarification. Not every person deserves access to your inner world. Your silence isn't emptiness. It's fullness you're no longer willing to spill. And in that stillness, you don't disappear, you finally arrive. And when you finally arrive there, inside that stillness, inside that silence, you expect relief to rush in like a celebration. You think freedom will feel obvious, light, immediate. But instead, it feels unfamiliar, almost uncomfortable. Because when chaos has been your normal, peace can feel like something is missing. Your body is so used to tension that calm feels suspicious. You wake up without the tightness in your chest and wonder what you forgot to worry about. You go hours, maybe days, without emotional drama, and a strange emptiness creeps in. Not because you miss them, but because your nervous system hasn't learned this new language yet. Freedom doesn't feel like fireworks at first. It feels like withdrawal. You reach for your phone out of habit. You replay conversations that no longer matter. You brace yourself for emotional impact that never comes. And that's not weakness, that's conditioning unraveling. You were trained to survive, not to rest, to anticipate moods, manage outcomes, stay alert. So when life finally slows down, your mind asks, is this safe? Your heart asks, is this real? This is where many people mistake discomfort for regret. But it's not regret, it's adjustment. It's your system recalibrating after living in constant emotional noise, like stepping off a speeding train. Everything inside you keeps moving even after the danger has passed. Slowly, though, something changes. Your shoulders drop, your breathing deepens, your laughter returns without permission. You begin to notice how quiet mornings feel gentle instead of lonely, how evenings no longer require emotional recovery, how your thoughts are your own again. And you realize freedom isn't loud. It doesn't beg for attention. It doesn't demand validation. Freedom whispers, you're safe now. And once that whisper becomes familiar, you understand. You weren't empty without them. You were finally at peace without the chaos. And peace, when you've never had it, takes time to feel like home. And as that peace slowly starts to feel like home, another truth rises to the surface, one that can be both relieving and heartbreaking at the same time. You begin to see with painful clarity that you were never the problem. For so long, you carried the weight of their dissatisfaction. You replayed moments, rewrote conversations in your head, wondering how you could have been softer, quieter, stronger, less emotional, more understanding. You tried to love in a way that would finally be enough. But peace has a way of exposing lies you once accepted just to survive. In the calm, you notice something undeniable. You are not difficult. You are not too much. You are not broken. The love you offered wasn't flawed. It was simply given to someone who couldn't receive it without trying to control it. Narcissistic dynamics have a way of slowly convincing you that your needs are the issue, that your reactions are the problem, that your humanity is inconvenient. Over time, that message sinks in. You start apologizing for existing, shrinking to keep the peace, believing that love requires self-erasure. But now, with space and distance, the truth becomes impossible to ignore. You didn't ask for too much. You asked the wrong person. You weren't unlovable. You were loving someone incapable of loving back in a healthy way. And that realization doesn't make you angry. It makes you compassionate toward the version of you who tried so hard. You stop blaming yourself for what you couldn't fix. You stop carrying shame that was never yours to begin with. You see that your empathy, your depth, your willingness to reflect were never weaknesses. They were strengths used again. You. And here's the most liberating part. When you finally understand you were never the problem, you stop trying to prove your worth. You don't need redemption. You don't need validation. You don't need them to agree. You need only this truth. Nothing was wrong with you for wanting real love. And once you stop blaming yourself, something unexpected happens. You feel two opposing emotions at the same time. Relief washes over you because the weight is gone, but grief follows closely behind, quiet and heavy, sitting in places you didn't expect. You grieve not just the person, but the future you kept believing in, the version of them you thought would emerge if you just held on a little longer, the conversations you imagined would one day bring understanding. Letting go of that hope can hurt more than letting go of the person themselves, and that can be confusing. You think, if I'm free, why does this still ache? Because healing isn't about erasing attachment. It's about releasing illusion. Relief comes from no longer living in survival mode, from waking up without dread, from knowing you won't have to justify your feelings today. But grief comes from accepting that what you wanted so deeply was never real in the way you needed it to be. Both emotions are valid. Both deserve space. You can feel lighter and sad in the same breath. You can be grateful you left and still mourn what you invested. That doesn't mean you made the wrong choice. It means you loved sincerely. The danger is thinking grief means you should go back. It doesn't. Grief is simply the heart catching up to the mind. It's your humanity surfacing after being suppressed for so long. And here's the ET power in allowing both. When you let yourself grieve without judging it, relief grows stronger. You stop fighting your emotions and start listening to them. You honor the part of you that hoped without letting it drag you back into harm. You don't need to romanticize the past to validate your pain. You can acknowledge the good moments without denying the damage. Because healing isn't choosing one emotion over the other. It's learning to carry both and still move forward. And when you do, you realize something profound. You didn't lose love. You released a story that was costing you your peace. And as you keep moving forward, carrying both grief and relief without letting either pull you backward, you begin to notice a subtle but undeniable shift. The balance of power changes, not because you fought for it, not because you demanded it, but because you stopped reacting. For so long, your reactions fueled the dynamic. Your explanations, your emotional responses, your willingness to engage kept the cycle alive. Every time you defended yourself, they felt in control. Every time you tried to fix things, they stayed comfortable. But now there's nothing to push against. You're no longer available for emotional tug of war, no longer pulled into defending your reality, no longer offering energy where it's not respected. And that's when you reclaim your power, not loudly, not dramatically, but decisively. Power doesn't always look like confrontation. Sometimes it looks like restraint, like choosing not to respond, like walking away mid-pattern instead of seeing it through to the same painful ending. The moment you stop needing to be understood by someone committed to misunderstanding you, the dynamic collapses. They may escalate. They may test boundaries. They may provoke reactions just to feel relevant again. But you see it now. And seeing it means it no longer owns you. Your calm becomes your authority. Your detachment becomes your strength. You don't need to win arguments anymore because you're no longer playing the game. And in that refusal, the power returns to where it always belonged, with you. This shift isn't about becoming cold or cruel. It's about becoming grounded. You still feel deeply, but you choose where your emotions go. You still care, but you no longer sacrifice yourself for someone else's comfort. And here's the truth that changes everything. The moment you stop reacting, you stop bleeding, you stop handing your power to someone who never protected it. You stand in your own emotional center, steady and self-led, and from that place, they can no longer reach you, not because you're unreachable, but because you've finally chosen yourself. And standing in that center, grounded in your own strength, you start to realize something crucial. Healing isn't a straight path. It isn't a checklist you complete or a moment you arrive at and stay. It's a journey that twists, loops, and sometimes feels like it's going backward, even when you're moving forward. Every step you take is progress, even if it doesn't feel like it. Some days you wake up lighter, like the weight you carried for so long is finally lifting. You breathe more freely. You smile more easily. And you think, I'm done. I'm free. But then, without warning, a memory hits. A pang of doubt, a fleeting regret, a question of what could have been. And it shakes you, not because you failed, but because healing is layered, not linear. It's in these moments you learn patience with yourself and the process. You understand that grief can resurface even after joy has returned, that clarity can feel clouded when old habits tug at your mind. That freedom is sometimes messy, full of contradictions, and yet profoundly real. This non-linear path teaches resilience. It teaches you to honor your own pace, to forgive yourself when old patterns sneak back, to celebrate small victories like saying no without guilt or feeling peace during moments that once caused chaos. Every stumble, every moment of doubt, every tear shed in private is part of the reclaiming of your life. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, you realize the chaos of the past has lost its grip. The power it once held over you has dissolved because you're learning to walk steady on uneven ground. The lessons, the grief, the triumphs, they all form the foundation for a new way of living, intentional, self-led, and anchored in truth. You see now that healing is not about perfection, it's about persistence. And persistence, even in waves, brings freedom that no one can ever take from you. And as you navigate the waves of healing, something beautiful begins to emerge. You start to rediscover yourself. Not the version of you shaped by their expectations, not the version molded to survive someone else's moods, but the true you, the one who existed before survival became your default. That part of you was never lost, just buried under layers of compromise, doubt, and constant vigilance. Now, peeling back those layers, you meet yourself again, fully and unapologetically. You notice the small things first, the way your laughter feels lighter, the way your thoughts flow without constant second guessing, the way your body relaxes in ways it hasn't. In years, you remember what it's like to make decisions without fear of disapproval. You reclaim your time, your energy, your joy, one choice at a time, and with each step, the person who once seemed so essential begins to shrink in your mind, replaced by someone who is whole without them. This rediscovery isn't instantaneous. It's in moments, trying something new without guilt, speaking your truth without hesitation, prioritizing your needs without apology. It's in realizing that the dreams, the passions, the love for life that were sidelined, you can bring them back now because they belong to you. No one else has the authority to define your worth. And with that return to self, boundaries no longer feel like walls. They feel like gates you control. You choose what enters your life, what stays and what leaves. You engage fully with what nurtures you and let go of what diminishes you. Reclaiming yourself is the ultimate act of freedom because it proves beyond doubt that your life is yours. The past tried to teach you otherwise, but now you see the person you were meant to be was never lost. They were simply waiting for you to show up and take your place again. And in that, you are unstoppable. And after you've found yourself again, after you've peeled back the layers of doubt, reclaimed your voice, and stepped fully into your own life, you discover the most profound truth of all: freedom is the real closure. It isn't an apology you never receive, a confession they may never make, or the recognition you were owed. It's the quiet, unwavering knowledge that your peace no longer depends on them, that your happiness is no longer negotiable, and that your life is finally yours to live fully. For so long, you waited, sometimes desperately, for validation from someone incapable of giving it. You replayed conversations, carried guilt that wasn't yours, and yearned for signs that they finally got it. But freedom doesn't wait for them. Freedom doesn't ask for permission. Freedom comes the moment you stop orbiting their world and start building your own. And in that shift, you realize something powerful. Closure doesn't require them at all. It's in the laughter that returns to your lips without hesitation, in the choices you make for yourself without fear, in the calm that replaces the chaos that once ruled your days. It's in the boundaries you no longer feel guilty about, the dreams you pursue unapologetically, and the love you give to yourself first. That is the closure they could never offer, and the one that matters the most. When the narcissist finally realizes they lost you, their regret may roar, but it's irrelevant. Your freedom already speaks louder than their apologies ever could. Your life is whole, your worth is undeniable, and you don't need anyone else to affirm it. Because real closure isn't about their recognition, it's about reclaiming your peace, your power, and your life. And standing there fully alive and fully yourself, you understand this is not just freedom. This is victory. This is rebirth. And nothing and no one can take it from you. And so here we are, at the edge of this journey together, and I want you to feel the weight of every word. Not as a lecture, but as a lifeline. Because if you've ever felt trapped, doubted yourself, or sacrificed your peace for someone else's control, know this: your story does not end in their hands. It ends in yours. Every moment you spent questioning your worth, every tear shed, every sleepless night. That was the preparation for this very moment, the moment where freedom is no longer a distant dream, but our reality you can touch. Think about it. The clarity that woke you, the realization that they noticed too late, the silence that became your strength, the peace that felt unfamiliar at first, the truth that you were never the problem, the grief that walked beside relief, the reclaiming of your power, the patience through nonlinear healing, the return to your authentic self, and finally, the freedom that acts as your true closure. They all lead here. Every lesson, every struggle, every heartbreak, it built the foundation for the life you are stepping into now. And here's the thing, freedom is magnetic. Once you claim it, once you live it fully, it calls others to respect your boundaries, your voice, your presence, and most importantly, it calls you to honor yourself above all else. You don't need their apology, their validation, or their recognition. What you need is the courage to stay in your truth. And that courage already lives inside you. So I want you to remember this. You are stronger than their manipulation, wiser than their illusions, and braver than the fear that once held you. You are free, and that freedom is unstoppable. Let it guide every choice, every step, every breath. Because in claiming it, you are not just surviving, you are rising, you are thriving, you are finally, undeniably, wholly alive. And nothing, not regret, not manipulation, not even the realization of loss, can ever take that from you.